going to be talking about Dehancer. Dehancer is a powerful film emulation plugin and color grading tool for DaVinci Resolve. And they do have it available for Adobe Premiere Pro and After Effects, as well as a variety of photo editing softwares, but today we're going to be focusing on the video side in DaVinci Resolve. Now before we get into it, I do want to mention that Dehancer did reach out to me to test out and review their product, but they do not have any control over what I say in this video, and all they asked for was my honest opinion, so that's what this will be. Alright, now let's get into it. About Dehancer. Dehancer offers 63 different photo and movie film stocks, and that number is continuously jumping up as they update it. So if you are into shooting film and you want a certain film stock, Dehancer most likely has it. Now how Dehancer differs from LUTs is that this is a plugin. So with a LUT, you typically add your node, throw the LUT on, and then you can kind of make your tweaks from there. But with Dehancer, once you throw the plugin onto your node, from there you'll be controlling it mostly from the effects panel. And I'll take you down the line real quick. Alright, so once you throw Dehancer onto your node, it is going to pop up in your effects panel, and you are first going to see your input, which you can choose your camera and the log that you shot in, and from there you can kind of tweak the exposure, temperature, tint. Secondly, you're going to see your film, which is your film stock, so you can enable and disable that, and that is where all 63 film stocks are. Next, you're going to see expand, which is your black point and your white point, and next is actually print, which is my favorite feature. So it starts off linear, and you can do codec 2383 print film, which is really cool. It just gives it this instant pop and nice contrast. Next you have color head, which I don't really mess with it too much, but you can definitely try to kind of get more different film looks out of that. And then you have your film grain, which I personally like to have it very, very low because I don't really like too much grain. Next you have halation and bloom, which are really cool because you can enable that and it'll kind of like make the highlights a little bit softer, a little bit more glowier. Then you have vignette. You have film breath or film breathe and gate weave, which I think are also really cool features just because they really add on to that film look, which I'll talk about later. And then you have false color embedded in. You can toggle this on and off and just see how your exposure is. Another thing I just noticed, which is actually really cool, is LUT generator. So I think later on down the line, as I get more experience with Dehancer, I'll definitely probably make a set of maybe 5 LUTs that I really like using, just so that it'll speed up my workflow a little bit. So yeah, overall it has so many different functions, a lot of potential to just control every single aspect of film. When I was starting out, I used to think film was just slapping grain on, but it's so much more than that, and pretty much every characteristic of film that you really want to emulate when shooting digital is there. And now for my first impressions. So right when I downloaded Dehancer, I did find this plugin a little intimidating just because I saw so many controls that I'm not used to seeing. There are so many different film stocks, so many different options to tweak. And for the first couple days, I was trying to mess around with it on my own, just thinking like, I do have a basic knowledge of color grading and color correction, so I figured I could kind of work this, but I was really struggling, and initially I just wasn't figuring out how to tweak the image to what I wanted it to look like. And I've seen some great stills from people that have used Dehancer, so I know it was just a matter of me not knowing what I was doing. And after watching a great tutorial from Nick Brangle, which I will have that video linked in the bio, literally 5 minutes in and it all started clicking with me. So thank you to Nick. And I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to watch at least a couple tutorials on YouTube, just because there is so much to take in. But once you get past that unfamiliarity, you can definitely start unlocking it to its full potential. And now for what I like. Overall, I think it's really cool that Dehancer goes the extra mile just to really make this emulation as close as possible to actual film. For example, when watching movies that were shot on film, there's this little jittering, and that's just because as the film is spinning and getting exposed, it's not perfectly still. And I never knew what that was called until I downloaded Dehancer, which is called gate weave. And you can add that in and you can tweak it to be as jittery or not jittery as possible. And I think that's such a cool addition just because it's such a small detail that really adds on to making this film emulation as realistic as possible. Another set of features I think are extremely cool are the halation and the bloom effect. So if you've been on YouTube and you've tried to figure out how to get that film look and you still kind of want to use digital lenses for autofocus or just the better functionality, you've probably seen a bunch of videos on these different mist filters, which they are great. And what they do is they soften the image, take that digital edge off, and they also make the highlights really bloom. So it just gets you closer to that vintage, more cinematic look that you would want to get out of a digital camera. So it's really cool that Dehancer has those options available. Being able to add and subtract it is a cool feature. And lastly, another great thing about Dehancer is that they offer support for a variety of different camera brands. So basically when you buy it, you don't have to buy a certain pack for, say, your Sony cameras or your Blackmagic cameras or your Panasonics. So growing as a filmmaker and upgrading your gear isn't a problem just because they have support for so many different brands. And now for what I don't like. In all honesty, I have no major issues with Dehancer. It does exactly what it's supposed to do and more. It is definitely a powerful tool. What I will be mentioning is simply just my preference. What I might not be the biggest fan of, you might really enjoy. So let's get into it. So Dehancer offers 62 different film emulations. With so many different film emulations, I face the Netflix dilemma of not knowing which one to pick. If you are someone who shoots on a bunch of different film stocks and you have a lot of experience with it, having this many options might be great for you because you could probably sift through the ones that you know you love shooting on and then go from there. I think that was kind of something that was just slowing down my workflow a little bit. At the end of the day, I do appreciate the fact that they go out of their way to give so many different options to us. I think over time it'll get progressively easier as I find maybe a handful of go-to film stocks that I really like shooting on. One thing that isn't an issue with Dehancer, it's more of an issue with, I guess, just my laptop. This plugin is powerful. It can slow down your computer quite a bit, so I would definitely suggest going to playback and timeline resolution and turning it to quarter. This will help a little bit, but I did still find that it was a little bit lagging. Again, not an issue with Dehancer, it's just mainly that my laptop can't keep up with Dehancer, so that's just something to note. They do have a list of system requirements that you can check on their website. And now for my conclusion. So as I've been working on this review the past couple days and color grading some more footage using Dehancer, I gotta say I really am enjoying it. If you are a filmmaker that pretty much does everything, you are the director, DP, editor, colorist, and you're not necessarily a professional colorist, I think it is a bit of a learning curve. And I think compared to LUTs, it definitely does take a little bit more work to get to the image you want, but once you do, it does feel like magic. It does have a very cool, distinct look, and personally I have grown to like slightly more cleaner images, so when I do use this, I actually plan on turning off the grain, but I do like the colors and the just overall film look that I get out of it. If you are a filmmaker with a set of go-to LUTs that you typically use, I think this definitely could be a good addition to your arsenal just because you can pull a variety of different looks out of it. I'm finally starting to pick it up, and honestly it's definitely getting me inspired. Now I will say that the paid version of DaVinci Resolve does offer a bloom and a film grain that honestly is actually pretty good, which I haven't gotten a lot of time to mess around with them, but they do look pretty good when compared with Dehancer. But I will say that the upper hand that Dehancer does have is just the overall functionality and options with working with different film stocks and different film prints. It does feel like I'm almost working within film in the convenience of my laptop. So if you are interested, I definitely recommend trying out the free trial version on Dehancer's website. And if it is something that you do want to embed into your workflow, you can actually use my promo code Victor and get 10% off your purchase. Anyways, that's all for this video. I do plan on making a tutorial sometime in the near future on Dehancer, but in the meantime, thank you and I'll see you in the next one.